are probably the most common houses or features on the Irish landscape, and in time they're going to become some of the rarest. More medieval castles and buildings like that than we have of something that is as relatively recent as maybe 100, 200 years ago.
Archaeologist and historian Chris Corlett has been wandering along Boreens for the last few years, photographing and recording the history of the decaying farmhouses around County Wicklow. This farmhouse near Roundwood is one of those in danger. It was lived in until about 10 years ago, but now it's a puzzle to see what purpose it might have in the 21st century. The pig house has already collapsed. It's about a mile down a lonely boreen and would take a lot of money to make it habitable and cosy. 100 years ago, this marginal land would have been cultivated with fields of barley, oats and wheat. These standing stones are not ancient Celtic symbols, but are more recent.
What we have here are a series of standing stones. Originally a nice circular top on top of this, on each of these stones, with stretcher stones forming a frame on which then you could build your oat stack and thatch it in then as well to keep the rain off it. And the idea, of course, is really to prevent rats from getting up into the oats and eating away at the oats and so on over while it's drying out. Perhaps a bit difficult to see here because it's all covered in grass, but I'm actually stepping up onto a rectangular platform of stones built up to store the hayrick. And then once that was dried out, then we could, at the end of the season, bring it straight into the loft here of the barn, and then it would be ready there to feed the cattle then during the winter months.
But to think that these old farm buildings are crude dwellings with little to recommend them is to miss some of our ancestors' secrets. This is a spy hole, once common in many cottages to let the farmer see who is at the door. And this is an intricately woven decorative fireplace canopy. It's made from wicker and clay. And this is a duck house, a 2-storey duck house. This may be the country's first water distribution system. It wasn't just the Romans who built aqueducts. So Edmund, what are we looking at here, this sort of structure?
This is the aqueduct made of oak, you see, which took the water across the stream. So the higher stream up here came down, and the force of the stream drove the water up the mountain here, which supplied the houses up here. These farmers back in those days, I mean, it was a great thing to do. They weren't kind of engineers or technicians, and yet they could think up this thing, bring a river down from up there, cross the river, or cross another river and drive it up the far side.
So the water actually went uphill?
Uphill, yeah.
Right. And then it distributed the water to the fields around for cattle?
Cattle, yeah, and sheep, you see, and then some went down to the houses around. Must be about 4 houses at least were supplied by it. Too many things disappear, and they're gone, and nobody knows anything about them, you see. And this is something, if we're going to put it back in the scheme, it shouldn't take an awful lot of money to do it.
And this must be the most picturesque farmhouse in the country.
Oh, we get loads of people. We're getting loads of people all the time here.
Margaret Dunn's family homestead lies at the foot of Carraway Stick waterfall. She has a planning permission in at the moment to restore the farmhouse. You wouldn't want to be teetering home from the pub. Access is across these stepping stones.
Margaret, I've often passed by this house and wondered who lived here and when exactly was it built?
Gosh, well, it's built way back. It began as a woolen mills, as far as I know, as far as back in 1700s. Back in the 1700s, there was a woolen mills down in Green Ann, further down the road, and this was connected to that.
And you lived in this house yourself for a time?
I did, yes. I lived here first as a child, and then I came back and lived in this house when I got married in 1982. So.
And you're hoping to restore this house now?
Yeah, we've always said we'd hate to see this place fall to rack and ruin, because it is very special. It's very special to us, but it's very special to a lot of people, I think.
In a field close by are other farmhouses which have not survived into the 21st century.
Well, we're in the garden of an old farmhouse, a derelict farmhouse, really looking at the four walls of a long farmhouse over here. And this is the fate of many farmhouses around Wicklow and around the country generally. And I suppose it's a shame that we haven't taken steps before this to start documenting them while they were still standing. And there's an opportunity now to do that while there's still so many around. But their future, of course, looks quite limited.
But there is a little good news. The Heritage Council has just announced a grant scheme that covers up to 75% of the cost of restoring farm outbuildings and agricultural features at risk, with the exception of the actual farmhouse.
We're trying to implement a measure that is more carrot than stick. It's a grant scheme to help farmers who are in REPS 4, the new REPS scheme, to help them to maintain the exterior of their farm buildings, the buildings that have been used for agricultural purposes over the years. If we don't take care of these ordinary things that we find around us, these ordinary buildings, they too will become rarer and rarer. And I think that a little judicious help with these buildings now is going to make them last into the future.
It's been a hugely revealing day in the Wicklow Mountains with Chris Corlett, travelling from tumble-down house to archaeological ruin. Chris's photographs tell a story of a way of life that our parents certainly remember, but that in 10 years' time may be forgotten forever.